Hello, my name is Alex Josh, and I'm an architect with the Microsoft Business Unit at NetApp. Today, we're going to be talking about OCPM 3.0 disaster recovery. This is based on 2 Windows clusters and uses SnapMirror. It's very similar to the PowerShell version we did previously. However, this is the Opalis or System Center Orchestrator, as it will be renamed in the next version. It's built on OCPM 3.0. So what we see here, as before, is Opalis. And we've created a very simple workflow that allows us to do a managed disaster recovery failover from site A to site B, from Seattle to Tacoma. And as in our other demonstrations, we begin with a monitor object. And what that monitor object is doing is it's waiting for an emergency change request to come in from System Center Service Manager. And only when that request is received will the workflow fire off. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And so here we see System Center Service Manager. This is Microsoft's ticketing system, and it's part of System Center. Excuse me. So we create the change request, and we're going to move the workloads from the Seattle to the Tacoma data centers. Right? And this is a planned failover. So we're going to take some actions to shut the workload down gracefully in Seattle before we move it to Tacoma. And the reason why we're doing this is to show how easy it is to build relatively complex workflows inside of Opalis. So you can see Opalis is waiting for that request to come in, and there it is. And the first step in a planned failover is to gracefully shut the workload down on the Seattle side. So here we see the Seattle side. We're running cluster A, and cluster A is has a set of VMs. There's 4 VMs in this case that are under protection, 2 Exchange servers, a SharePoint server, and a SQL server. And you can see that they're slowly shutting down. This is going to take a few seconds for Windows to stop here. And then once that's done, we're going to flush the queue to the far side of the link, and that happens actually very quickly. So you can see that we update our SnapMirror here, and that's using a control that we wrote that's part of OCPM. This is a part of our Opalis integration pack, our OYP, that ships inside of OCPM. And then we fire off the DR failover object, which is also another object that ships inside the package. What that's going to do is it's going to go over the far side, the cluster B, and attempt to replicate side A in cluster B. So the first thing that it has to do is it has to mount the CSV from cluster A into cluster B. And this is what you see it doing here. So it presents the disk to the cluster, and this takes a second. Then it converts it to a CSV. And then it brings it online, and you can see it bringing it online for server number 3, but we need to move that, so we're going to move it to server number 4 because that's the target of our disaster recovery here. So it becomes the target. So this will just take a second, and now the CSV is online. So the next thing that we do is we need to recreate the VMs that came from the A side. So in this case, what's happened is that we have extracted all the metadata from Hyper-V and placed it into an XML file. And that operation needs to be done prior to the DR operation. So that's a maintenance step that needs to occur on a regular basis. We don't show it here, but it happens before this operation occurs. That file is then placed within the volume and is then replicated with all the other data. So it's the same on the near side and the far side. And now you can see that we're bringing the VMs in. The advantage of this technique is that because we've actually extracted all the metadata out of Hyper-V, the new VMs are exactly the same as the old ones. As you can see, the names are exactly the same. The amount of RAM is the same. The GUIDs are the same. The underlying NIC topology is exactly the same. All objects are identical as when we retired them on the far. We recorded their information on the far side. How often you do that is up to you. This is actually something that Opalis is very good at. You could build a workflow that did this on a regular basis, for example. So now the VMs are coming up one at a time. As you can see, we're bringing them online. Now, naturally, there are other things that need to occur to complete this failover. For example, we may need to change IP addresses, or we may need to change DNS, or change the way Active Directory site topology works. Right? All these things would need to happen. But it's relatively easy to build workflows in Opalis to do that. And we're simply showing the ability of the storage system to support this workflow. So we don't do anything inside the VMs. Everything that we do is related to the cluster and the VMs themselves on Hyper-V. But you have the exact replica of the running cluster on the far side as of right now. And in fact, if we open one of these up, what you'll see is that they're running. It's a Windows image just ready to go and log in. And in fact, it's exactly the same VM as we had prior to the failover. So thank you very much for watching, and hopefully you found this informative. Please catch us on blogs at netapp.com/msenviro for more information and further updates.